Hello/x/. You might remember me from a few weeks ago. I posted a thread also using a screenshot of Mulder. I don't know if anyone else has claimed to be me, but if they have since then they were lying. The first thread got much more attention than anticipated. So here's a second thread. I wanted to make it earlier weeks ago, but work got in the way of my free time. However, I have nothing but time this New Year's and I'm significantly inebriated. Just to recap for those who don't know or remember, I'm not a 4chan user. I'm just someone who's involved with the deep dark stuff everyone knows about but pretends doesn't exist. My specialty is as a fixer for an organization that doesn't officially exist, with an overlap into the occult. My personal interest is in cryptids, but that's not my job field. I know a lot about a little and a little about a lot. Ask me anything you want, but I can only promise the truth. I'm not here to change minds, and so I won't argue with anyone who says otherwise to anything I have to say. But I'm here to hopefully make things clear to others, clear as I understand it anyways. But also, I'm drunk right now, so my writing might be a bit off. And someone mentioned in the last thread that I should use a name or a trip code. I thought Fox was fitting given the peripheral association to my actual name and the use of the Mulder pics. Ask away. I only offer the truth.
What is the best wood type for a table? Mahogany is the prototypical and most advertised lumber. However, the material is much too heavy to where the table becomes an inconvenience, especially for dressers. What would you recommend?
Yeah, I don't know shit about wood. I can talk ad nauseum about modern firearms, but wood, I know nothing. Ask Jesus if you want carpentry advice.
I read about a theory that Thor and Odin originally created humans, and they're really aliens from outer space. Christ wasn't exactly an alien, but he was a protected person who everyone loved because of his nature. Loki killed Christ and blamed Thor, so Sin/Allah and other huge factions buried Thor in the ground but didn't kill him, but badly injured him, and a war ensued. How true is this?
Not true at all. The following isn't something I'll stand by as true, but just something I've extrapolated from what I do know. Christ was a prophet, but he wasn't the physical manifestation of God. What people call God is essentially a force tied to the basic foundations of the universe. Everyone is connected to this force, but prophets are people who have a stronger and more unique connection than most. Christ was an individual who had one of, if nothing the most, strongest connections to this force. Nothing to do with Loki or any Norse BS.
How fucked are we, really?
In full seriousness, there's not enough words in the English language I could string together to express the degree to which we're all fucked. Every day is another day I want to splatter my brains across the wall. People have been ranting about the end for 2,000 years. It was only a matter of time before they were right. Storms on the horizon. And the rain's about to start.
How soon we talking?
I can't say a date, but I'd say by the turn of the next century. Imagine a world of permanent darkness. And imagine nobody could lift a finger to stop it.
That's cool you've returned. I remember seeing your thread, but I missed most of it because of work. So forgive me if you've already addressed any of these questions. What are the roots of the organization that you work for, to the best of your knowledge? I mean this historically, but also philosophically. Like, is there a particular historical event you can pin its origins to? For instance, what is the current or most recent project or job or task that you are or were involved in with this organization? Again, can you point to any event specifically or even hint at it?
The roots have to do with the founder. He was a guy who knew that there were two jobs that had the ultimate job security: sucking dick and killing people. Because someone always wants their dick sucked and someone always wants someone else dead. So he worked and built the connections for an organization oriented towards the latter. It's evolved to being something that doesn't even have a digital fingerprint. All personnel records are physical and each personnel has an alias assigned, though I imagine there's other organizations with a similar structure. As for recent jobs, that's something too specific to say. Someone's always watching and all that BS.
When does it come back? Or why aren't the ones with power doing anything about this shit?
It being what exactly? Sorry if I don't understand, but like I said, I'm fairly drunk. I've been working at a bottle of Jack for the past 5 hours.
God.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it does. I've got a theory that the Book of Revelation is fairly irrelevant to the future. I think it used real details to create a narrative that gave the world false hope. That made people think no matter how bad things got, they didn't have to do anything because in the end it would be all right. That despite their laziness, God would swoop in at the last second and save them all. But he won't. Nobody will. Because that's the point. Christ didn't die to save the world. He died so that everyone in it would have the chance to save themselves. Same thing applies here. Only the people can save themselves from the hell that's on the horizon. But nobody lifts a finger. Because the greatest trick the devil ever pulled wasn't making the world think he didn't exist. It was making the world think that in the end, someone else would save them. But nobody is coming. Not that I can tell anyways.
The founder, American? Was he somewhat well established when he started the organization? What sort of gun do you keep on you at all times?
He was American, yeah. It's an American-located organization. There might be parallel ones in other continents, but I know that if we have a job in another continent we always have a contact to supply hardware. He used familial ties to get it started. He was well connected in the old boy network, so getting things started didn't take much. As for my guns, I keep an HK .45 on my nightstand and at my side always, plus a Colt manufactured M4 at the ready on a weapons rack in my bedroom.
I remember you, bro. I'm glad you are back. I asked about the crawlers and where they reside in Europe. I would like some more info. You said they hunt humans? So they eat us like a zombie would? Or do they kill a human and then devour him or her? Do they rape as well or just eat human flesh? How do they reproduce and where do they come from? Also, you said an AK was better than a Mossberg against one. Why? My Mossberg semi-automatic has a 10-shell clip that I can put any type of slug or shell into. Dragon's breath, exploding shells, whatever. Can a crawler withstand a headshot close range from a shotgun? And if so, what the fuck are those things? Have you even seen one eat a human? Please elaborate if you can.
No, they're flesh and blood. A slug to the head will kill them like anything. But I'd personally rather have an AK just because of the higher magazine capacity. They kill humans because they're pure evil. I don't know the real origin. Maybe natural evolution. Maybe they come from one of the other dimensions. I genuinely don't know. I just know they've been here for a long time and we know it in our DNA to be afraid of them.
Only the people can save themselves from the hell that's on the horizon. But nobody lifts a finger. Let's just pretend that humanity were capable. What would they have to do?
They'd have to make the hero play. You'd have to kill people, straight up. Men, women, children. You'd have to go full fascist because you can't afford to let anything slip through the cracks. So you'd need to make sure anything that might pose a threat was ashes. Of course, it's all just a temporary fix. The threats against humanity don't come from the physical world. You can kill the servants of Moloch all you like, but there will always be Moloch, and he will always find new servants.
I think people with power are afraid because they don't have friends to back them. They're alone in this world. Ones claiming they're helping are either psyops agents or just shit posters.
Ones claiming to help in what way? As in, ones that say they fight against the elites who serve evil.
Do crawlers have a specific environment they like? Do they leave signs of their existence around, tracks, sounds, things to identify they live there? Are there any legitimate videos out on the net of them that the US Mill hasn't made disappear? A lot of videos show things like what you describe, but it's hard to tell the real from fake. So have you seen any real videos floating around where someone caught a crawler on cam or audio?
They like the dark. Caves and mines. It's my understanding that they usually live in them, so any signs of their presence on the surface is nil. As for videos, I don't have any links, but I've had a few come to my attention in the past that I definitely call legitimate.
What happens do you die? Do we reincarnate? Is Earth a reincarnation soul prison? Additionally, when is the coming polar magnetic shift?
It's not a reincarnation prison. Reincarnation is so rare you don't have to worry about it. It would be like being struck by lightning while you bought a winning lottery ticket. What happens when you die is that your soul no longer has a body to tie it to this world and it moves to the next. The next world being decided by the vibrational frequency range of your soul. Positive frequency, a positive dimension. Negative, a negative one. I know nothing about polar shifts. I think that's just some BS people say to keep people that are conspiracy-minded in a state of fear.
Is the sun going to explode soon?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you remember how you got here and before you were born?
No. But I believe I will reincarnate should I die. That's part of why I'm not afraid of dying and why I haven't put a bullet in my head, per another reply.
Thanks, man. Are there any other cryptos to be aware of? Creatures that live underwater or things that live in the forest? Giant spiders, werewolves, wendigo, vampires, things like that?
Vampires, maybe, but not like in the movies. There's vampiric blood-drinking creatures like the chupacabra, but nobody wearing a cape and living in a castle. Werewolves are real, but not that Hollywood shit. They're a subset of astral projection, a projection of the soul that exists in the physical plane. That projection taking the face of a wolf. Wendigo is just a crawler, mythological BS from ignorant natives applied to a flesh and blood creature. Like how the natives in Africa said what we now know as the gorilla was a magical being that could shapeshift.
I don't want to reincarnate.
You likely won't. It's not worth considering for the average person.
I take your silence as a no. Too bad. I'd love to talk shop with you.
I don't even know who you are or what you asked.
Do silver bullets work? Do you use special rounds on cryptids? Or is normal ammo like a rhino tip/exploding shell dragon's breath just as effective at taking down cryptids? Anything out there that you need special ammo for? And are there secret gun/armories out there that service supernatural hunters?
Regular ammo works fine enough. I've not encountered a werewolf, so no need for silver bullets.
Good question. Get on this OP, and please comment on Kubrick's possible insider knowledge. Was he aware of the organization you work for? Did he stumble onto something? Was he a pawn?
I can't speak with certainty about the subject, but I believe the moon landing to have been faked. Kubrick didn't know of the specific organization I work for, but he did know about the big picture. He knew the evils men do behind closed doors. Things that make men no longer men. Things that make them monsters.
Sorry was not in older thread. WTF is a crawler.
A crawler is a more professional name for a wendigo/skinwalker, / a similar creature to what the internet calls the rake. It's a name that doesn't carry the same pre-established connotations. So it's more fitting.
You mentioned to the other Anon that maybe crawlers come from another dimension. Are there other things that have entered our world from another dimension? And all those people who have gone missing in national parks, what happened to them? Did they step into portals? Or were they eaten by crawlers? Please tell us about the national parks and what is really there if you can.
As I said in the last thread, cryptids are a personal interest of mine, not something my job specifically entails. But, the national parks do have a degree of cryptids activity. Some are from crawlers, assuredly. Some from other things, no doubt. But I've heard some stories. Stories about portals into another world, a more sinister world. And honestly, I believe them. And may God help any man who unknowingly wanders through one.
I am Robin Kaczmarczyk, and I asked you if you wanted to have some ayahuasca tea with me. It's an invitation, but you gotta make your way here on your own. I'm a public kind of person.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I've been meaning to get my hands on some salvia for ritual purposes anyways, so it's a similar enough boat. But how do I know you're really Robin K?
From your post, the origins of the organization are political and criminal in nature. Where the fuck did the occult stuff come from? When did that start? Who introduced it? And so forth.
The occult stuff came from what the killing was. Fixing problems. The powers that be dabble in the occult, and occasionally that creates problems. Problems someone needs to fix. So, people started learning how to fix them. I myself don't practice anything occult, but I know damn well what to do if anything dies bump in the night.
Can you share some of those stories of that sinister world?
Haven't been there myself, so I can't say. Only second and third hand, rumor and speculation. I think it's the underworld. Or maybe it's hell. I'll find out when I get there.
Google me, get my Facebook page, ask for friendship, or even call my number. It's public, too.
Facebook says you're in Mexico. I think I'll need to renew my passport, but I'll write your name down and see about it sometime in the future.
Great.
Can't say when I'll be able to get down there, but write my name down somewhere. I'll ask about it one day, and if you can tell me what my name on here is, then I'll know you're the real Robin and I'll come.
How does your job overlap into the occult? And what occult? Magic? Demons? Chaos mages? What magic is real? Is Moloch a demon or alien from another dimension? Can we kill him?
Moloch is what we call a demon, not in the fallen angel sense, but in the sense that it's a word applied to any negative entity. Can we kill him? I don't know. I honestly don't. I don't know that we can kill any being that's of the spirit, but I hope and is crawl through 1,000 miles of broken glass for even a 1% chance.
Should I crawl back to the United States, or is it going to collapse into bloodshed soon?
I'd say there's no better place to be. Simply because you can own land and you can own firearms.
I know you are not a 4chan user, Fox, but around here, when a thread gets these kind of digits, It means it is pretty special as to roll. These numbers are highly unusual. Please tell us more about the supernatural.
Well, people have always said I had a direct pipeline to God. What do you want to know about the supernatural? That's a too wide question to answer.
If somebody wants to stay safe and as far away from the deep dark stuff as possible, what would be your advice? And what is your advice to someone who want to get in on the action?
You want to stay safe? Then don't go chasing waterfalls. You want to get in on the action? Don't be no scrubs. Sorry, I just watched the other guys last week and it's been living rent-free in my head. You want to stay safe, don't look for trouble. You turn over enough rocks, you're bound to find what you're looking for. Define the action.
He is threatening you with a cryptic post in English, German, and Turkish.
Good for him.
The action being work similar to yours or adjacent to it.
Honestly. Best way, presuming you don't have any family and friends connections like I did, join the military in a special operations job. Army Special Forces, Rangers, Marine Raiders, Marine Recon, Navy SEALs, etc. That's the first step to most easily get your foot in the door if you don't have one already. Become a guy who gets shit done. Agencies notice that.
What happens to America in the next 5 years? Who will win the 2024 election? Will America balkanize or erupt into a second civil war or revolution?
Don't know, not my area.
Whose side is the CIA really on? Are they allied with the breakaway German group? Seems like the CIA want to bring about the collapse of the United States. From my POV, it seems like racking up all that debt and then bailing on a sinking ship has been the plan since the beginning.
The CIA is heavily a tool of the enemy. They're on the side of those in power. Always have been.
What makes the world of darkness so bad in a sentence or two?
Everything you know and everything you love will cease to exist.
I just don't get it. Why do these people love it and think it's all cool and want to be edgy, when it'll eat them alive in the end? When do we get a more balanced world? Why do we live in a world where we get terrorized 24/7?
The people running the world don't care about the next life. They're hedonistic and only care about this one. That's why they'll sell their soul for riches and fortune. But on some level they're still afraid. It's why once they make the deal with the devil, they focus on trying to find ways to get an extra year or month or week. Because they know once their heart stops beating, their soul isn't theirs anymore.
How does one get started in the business like your founder did? I'm Europe-based in ID, like to start my own organization if possible, but I don't have the knowledge or skill to get started alone.
You don't? I think I said it in a previous reply, but if you want in, then you need to build the skills and the reputation as someone who can get things done.
So basically, similar to he movie John Wick, you've said it's very rare to reincarnate, but in the next post, you say you're certain you will reincarnate. How does this make sense? One thing that forever struck the modern generations is porn. I want to know why it's supplied in mass. Is it to weaken you? What's your take on fapping and sex? Who is behind all this? Hope you'll answer.
Maybe? I don't really like those movies, so I don't quite know the specifics of how their world works. I guess it's not particularly that I'm certain my soul will reincarnate, but specifically that I'm sure my soul will stay in this world, or return to it at least. I'll find out which route it'll be when I get to that bridge. Not exactly my field, so I can't give a rock-solid answer I'll stand behind, but I'll spitball based on what I do know. I don't think it's any one answer. I think it's a multifaceted problem. Primarily, it generates a lot of money and it encourages a spiritual decay within human society, the latter being a necessary piece to what the enemy wants. Demoralization and for humans to prioritize hedonism.
The threats against humanity don't come from the physical world. Where do they come from then? Be specific. And what are the threats that come from there? Again, please be as specific as possible. Fighting in the physical sounds useless then.
From the next world and from the last. The most grave threats against humanity are spiritual entities that come from other worlds. They interact with ours via the non-physical planes. It's my understanding the big head honchos humanity has to fear are Lucifer and Moloch, though they have a dozen different names and forms throughout various cultures. You fight in the physical the same way these entities wage war in the physical. You fight the agents of their will.
Why drink alcohol if it's literally poison?
Self-punishment.
I typically don't reply, but you have intrigued me. What can you tell me about familial deities? Who are those with amber/yellow eyes? Why are bloodlines so important? Thank you.
The thing with bloodlines has to do with blood itself. Your blood is unique, as much as your body is unique to you. It's a signature in a way, in that only your blood can be yours. Hence why it has a place amongst occult ritual. It serves to tie the ritual to the person conducting it. Blood also is tied to life. This is another element to why blood is spilt as a sacrifice to entities. Blood is holy. It's why I've always refused to donate blood. Bloodlines matter to the elite for these reasons. They need their blood to continue on the earth, because in a manner of speaking, it lets them continue on the earth as well. It's why there's lots of interbreeding between the elite families. It keeps the blood in the family, so to speak. I also have a theory about how it relates to psychopathy amongst them, given that's a genetically inherited type of ASPD, but that's a separate topic.
Few hours without a reply. Probably that you're gone now, but if not, is there something that makes you think such a future is entirely unavoidable? Without being able to explain the situation, it's going to be hard to really nail down why. Besides, people don't want to help themselves. And I understand that. But there must be some type of analogy you could offer otherwise. Something as simple as, is it self-inflicted? An outside force pushing towards an end? Or another thing entirely? If it's shoe on head, then I can see your main issue. But if we are to fail to an outside force, simply because of that, I'd like to argue then that things aren't as dire as you'd want to believe.
It's an outside force using human actors. It's evil. There's this common idea that the force called God is the Most High. But it's sort of a yin-yang situation. God, the light, has an antithesis. The darkness. Evil? They're both fundamental forces of the universe, more like gravity than a human being, though they both have will and intent. This will is carried out via human actors. You see, the quote often attributed to Tolkien, about how evil can only corrupt that which good has made, is more true than most know. Evil doesn't create, God does. What evil does is twist those creations into a corrupted, funhouse mirror version. Evil must grow. It wants everything. From where I sit, slowly but surely, it's well on the road to getting what it wants.
Know anything about traveling to other universes? Like if I had a specific one in mind and wanted to take someone with me?
Nothing concrete that doesn't involve dying. I've only heard rumors and speculation, though it's not enough to rule it out. I will say that it's not that bullshit you read online where you meditate and suddenly you're in a universe where our world is sunshine and roses. There's other universes, other worlds. But there's only one like ours.
So you're basically a hitman, a killer/assassin hired for getting rid of unwanted? But specifically that I'm sure my soul will stay in this world. Why and why do you think posters here won't? You seem pretty demoralized yourself.
Something like that. There's problems, word from on high gets passed down to my cell or someone else's. Then we use the resources and assets at our disposal to get the job done. It's organized in a manner to give complete deniability to any other agents as well as to whomever needed their problem solved. Demoralized, but only to the point where I get the big picture. I think I'll stay in this world because my work won't be finished. I know it sounds exceedingly arrogant to say, but I'm different from most. I've mentioned that there's a connection to God, to the light, that people have sometimes. Those people have been called holy men throughout history, Jesus being the man I theorize having had the most direct and strongest connection. I've got it too. Not enough that I'm running around doing Jedi shit. But enough that I have visions, sometimes see things before they happen, and it always happens. I have an intuition for things that's always bordered on spooky. When I was in the Marines, my buddies used to say I had a direct pipeline to God. In the field, they'd ask me to ask God for weather and we'd always get the weather I asked for.
Interesting thread, Mr. Fox. You have the same exact features as the guy being interviewed in this video. A guy prolific in solving shit who got recruited to fix someone else's problem, who also happens to have certain knowledge in the occult. Are you him, or do you know him?
Not him, don't know him, sorry.
It is arrogance, though, since you're implying you're better than others. Everyone is created in the image of God, not just you. I think you're also demoralized because you're a killer. You can't do this job and expect to be good. You're sort of neutral, I guess. I'm surprised someone like you would out themselves on 4chan. So you don't have a wife with this job, right? Do you have sex at all? Do you fuck prostitutes? Do jack off all the time or live the life of a monk? Are there things you are not allowed to do or things you're told to explicitly do?
I'm not better than others. Maybe when it comes to my capabilities or my intelligence contrast to the average person, but I don't think I'm better than anyone when it comes to my value as a human life. I'm saying I'm different, not that I'm better. And yes, everyone is created in the image of God, but what that refers to is that human beings have a soul, the us, that's comprised of a divine spark. It's what makes men different from all the other entities. They don't have that spark. I wouldn't consider myself good, but maybe most would at a first glance. I'm very charming. I don't consider this outing myself though. Just sort of putting what I know out there and leaving it for the masses. Maybe people take note. Maybe they don't. But I put it out there where people would see it. After that, it's out of my hands. I don't have a wife, no. There was one girl though, someone I love and know loves me back. But I pushed her away a long time ago and kept her at an arm's length since. In my line of work, anyone you love will only get hurt. And I refuse to let anyone hurt her. As for sex, I don't do prostitutes. I have a couple times in the past, but I was bored. I'm tall, broad-shouldered and know how to dress well. I get with women periodically, but never any real relationship.
Can you give a rough idea about who exactly is in charge of everything?
Honestly, it's hard for me to even begin. There is a one who's in charge above all, the evil I mentioned in a previous reply, but that's a metaphysical force of the universe and not a person like I'm sure you mean. There's dozens of organizations and groups, Rosicrucians, the Moloch worshippers, Catholic Church, Masons, etc. These groups can sometimes butt heads, but they're all each their own thread in a winding web of darkness. All interconnected on some levels. At the end of the day, they all take orders from agents of this darkness. Of this evil? My catch-all name for them has always been the Syndicate.
Sorry if you already answered this kind of question, if so, feel free to ignore. What are the entities some of us meet on DMT? I met Anubis once and he told me that him and the others are shape-shifting beings who are trying to guide/assist humanity. He said they'd alter themselves to look any way which would make sense to the individual. Do you think he was bullshitting me? These entities have motivated me to stop taking my long-term antidepressants and mood stabilizer meds, which I did, and that led me to Christ and to healing, finding my soul again. What do you think they are?
I can't speak for your own experiences, but it's my understanding that entities witnessed while on hallucinogenics are beings within our world, just residing in the non-physical planes. Places that we can't perceive on the physical plane. There's all kinds of entities that come and go on the non-physical planes. Some may be good, some may be evil. They all have their own individuality, much as we do. Some serve the light, some serve the dark. But no matter what you see, always be wary of them. The entities on other planes can fuck your life up.
Do you have any thoughts on how this can be fought in the spiritual world?
I don't know. I'll find out when I'm dead and my soul is no longer tied to the physical by my body.
It's because the thread of logic that connects them isn't human. The answer to bringing down the spider web is to find out where the slider is and spray some fucking raid on it.
And that's where the problem lies. The spider in question is a fundamental force of the universe. To kill it would be like killing gravity.
Nah, there's always a way to fight back. If energy can exist on this plane, it can be killed. If you are an insider, keep your ears peeled and figure it out. There have to be similarities and consistencies, odd things that make no sense.
A way to fight back against spiritual entities? Sure. To combat them on our plane of existence. I don't know if it can be done. They aren't entities tied to this world and this plane like we are. They can move between planes and only appear in the physical plane when the right circumstances are present. But even doing that takes a lot of energy. They can't stay in the physical. In terms of killing one, you're thinking in far too human of terms. They don't have a body. How can you make them bleed? And if it can't bleed, how can you hope to kill it? Maybe there's some means with which they can be killed. I don't know. I know they can be hurt, but to what capacity I can't say. I've heard enough rumor and hearsay about entities being held back by the threat of harm by physical items to think that to be the case. But would plunging an enchanted dagger into the center of an entity on the physical plane cause it to cease existence? I don't know.
You're thinking too much inside the box in regards of this topic. Really, almost no one can touch these things because you can't see them. Only ones who can see them or have the ability to see them can talk to them. To gain the ability is the question, though.
Close but no cigar. You can't see them because they exist on the other planes, the negative and positive ones. Whereas we exist on the physical/neutral plane, the negative and positives overlap with ours, though we can't sense them. Generally, anyways. Some people with a greater connection to God have the gift of being able to communicate with the entities without the use of ritual. These entities can take a physical shape, but the frequency of our plane doesn't rhyme with theirs, so they struggle with it. Like trying to swim upriver. A physical manifestation eats up a lot of energy and they can't maintain it forever. This is why demonic hauntings always start small before they escalate. The entity doing the haunting will do small things to build a fear in the people at the residence. It feeds off that negative fear energy to give it the strength it needs for physical interaction and then manifestation. It's also why being steadfast and not having fear is the easiest way to get them to fuck off.
Fox, what is the best way to purify the soul? I want to be a better person and closer to God.
Be a good person. Unironically. Don't lie, don't steal, don't hate or be evil. Try your hardest to be good. It's funny, because as much as I dislike the church, they sorta got it down right on what it takes, even if they don't understand why or how. Be a person of positivity and kindness, and that's your best bet to move on to a positive dimension after you die. Your soul exists now on the physical plane, tied to your body. Once you die, it'll move on to whatever dimension it best resonates with. Either someplace positive or negative, which is where the ideas of heaven and hell come from in religion. For it to resonate positive, you have to have tried as best as you can to be the best you can. Don't be a piece of shit. It's like karma. Everything good and everything bad you do and have done will come to affect the frequency of your soul, and that will decide where it moves to when the time comes. Be good. Love your fellow man. Hold the door for an old lady. Help your brother when he's fallen down. But know this. To be good is not to be passive. Sometimes the good choice is to take action. To fight. For as much as Christ preached forgiveness, he still knew to toss tables and throw hands when people had filled the temple with their greed.
Nobody who has an AR actually calls it an M4, other than fake fucking LARPers. Not OP, but my first exposure to the AR-style rifle was the M4 in the military. If you read his post, he strongly hints at a Spec Ops background. Honestly, it supports his story that he'd refer to it as an M4. If you knew how much these dudes trained with and modified their weapons for combat, you'd understand. And each operator makes their own modifications to their weapons to fit what they want it to do in combat. It's probably literally the same M4 he used in combat.
I call it an M4 because that's what it is. Says M4 on the side, made by Colt, has a 14.5-inch barrel. By all measures, that's an M4. If it wasn't Colt or FN manufactured and to the same specs as to what I was issued in the Marines, it's not an M4 and I'd never call it such. It's why I have a personal axe to grind with Daniel Defense.
Yes, life is a gift. Embrace it, live it.
This, life is sacred. Respect it.
The first story in this video talks about being in an American forest and walking into another jungle dimension where a big foot-like creature tries to grab the guy. Hear of anything like that? And will you be returning to /X/ anytime soon in the future?
I may come back eventually, but I don't know when. As for that story, accounts of similar events have come across my radar. I wouldn't rule it out as true and honestly believe it holds some weight.
Gonna sound nuts, but I think the bullets are high-intensity positivity. Think of how you feel when you are really, really angry. Figure out how to replace the anger and keep the intensity. This shit BTFO them. I've seen studies on isochronic beats and how when people hear these beats, their brains sync up to them. If you can feel an emotion intensely and your brain emits that frequency and intensity, then others will sync up with you.
This is very close to a personal theory of mine. You see, the soul has that aforementioned divine spark. And through that humans can do incredible things through meditation and focusing of their energy. This is where prayer gets its power. Not asking God but using and focusing the energy that is God-given. If the people believed enough, then it can produce results. I think, if face to face with a demon, and you truly believe the bullets in your weapon will do damage, then damage can be done. Because through that divine spark you willed it to be so.
This. Probably need to bring back conventions, something like CryptidCon where people can meet up that are interested in the topic and come up with a plan of action. I go to a lot of paranormal sites myself, but the caves is where I personally drawn the line for myself, but I'm down for some tunnel invasion with some /X/schizos.
The caves are a dangerous game.
Again, how do you reconcile this with being a murderer?
All life has to end eventually, and even then it continues in the next world. What difference does it make if the life ends by my hand or by another's?
What do you know about the underground cave systems?
That they exist. I don't know if it's some big expansive network that's all connected like some mega anthill, But there are caves and they can be dangerous. There are very old and very wicked things that live in them. The previously mentioned crawlers being one of them.
The Syndicate sounds like John Wick. The entities on other planes can fuck your life up. Sounds like in Stranger Things. I get with women periodically, but never any real relationship. What people have you actually killed? Anyone we know? Do you ever show mercy? Do you not feel numb or bitter killing humans as a job? Can you objectively say how often you ejaculate, no matter if by yourself or with a woman? I wonder because I often think maybe because of no FAP, that you can only really exist on a high level if you don't ejaculate a lot. To kill it would be like killing gravity. It's quite simple though. People just have to follow the good force and be of God. This is why demonic hauntings always start small before they escalate. The entity doing the haunting will do small things to build a fear in the people at the residence. It feeds off that negative fear energy to give it the strength it needs for physical interaction and then manifestation. It's also why being steadfast and not having fear is the easiest way to get them to fuck off. Do you deal with shit like hauntings?
Not a fan of the movies, so wouldn't really know. Yeah, now that I think about it. Not exactly, but similar. Killed more than I can remember. All records of anyone killed are physical and incinerated as soon as it's done. Means nobody can hack anything and nothing can get missed. I show mercy by not prolonging suffering. But sometimes people will get in the way or try and cross you and you make them watch as you put their family into 55-gallon drums of lye. But that's only for people who should have known better. Who should have known not to try and get in the way of the machine. I don't particularly feel about it any which way. I have something of a deterministic philosophy of life. Anyone who's in my sights did something to put them there, and to get into my sights is to be fired upon. Who am I to deny them their fate? They put themselves on the road. I'm simply the destination. I'm not quite sure you're getting it, but I think I've said as much on the topic as is worth saying. Not too often. Sometimes. A conversation between me and two superiors went like this once. Superior 1, blah 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 John Wick. Superior 2, nah, he's not John Wick, he's John Constantine. Me? That's still Keanu Reeves, sir.
What do they look like? I'm not a /X/ person, but started a year ago and want to know if it is what I saw. I live next to a graveyard. I used to hear banshee screams, and one night I left my house, and when walking past the gate of this graveyard saw something walk on 4 limbs. It was long and tall with a small head.
You might have seen a crawler. Sounds enough like one. Was it pale white?
Not sure if you have been asked this, but why are you doing this, Fox?
You know how when you've got a secret and you hold it in, but you just feel like you have to tell someone? It's something like that. I think the people should and deserve to know the truth of our reality, as much of it as I know and can divulge without revealing myself.
Since you seem to know a bit about cryptids, maybe you have some idea about what I ran into a few years ago. I'll try to make it short as I can, but it's hard. Wife and I went camping around mile 11 or 12 of the Hope Highway in Alaska. Had to off-road about half a mile from the highway, so decently far from any other people. We kept tripping on the tent fly tie-downs, so I made a point of securing the shit out of them, well enough that we continued tripping on them throughout the day and they never budged. This will matter later. We eventually got to bed, then we kept hearing twigs and branches snapping and crack all around our tent. I kept going out to check and finding nothing. They kept getting closer and more frequent until I heard what sounded like a large branch snapping right next to our tent. I got out again with a flashlight. Couldn't find anything. Decided to start a fire, thinking it was some animal. Had to be at least as big as a person to snap a branch as large or one loud as that. But couldn't find any tracks or other obvious signs. Couldn't see anything. This was Alaska in the summer, so it never got too dark. After the fire was going, I went to take a piss and I saw a weird orange/amber light, maybe 200 to 300 yards away, about 10 to 20 feet up in the trees. I shined my flashlight at it and it seemed like it reacted, strafed to the side, and disappeared from sight. Didn't think much of it in the moment, but when I headed back towards the tent with the flashlight, I noticed all the rainfly tie-downs had been untied. Every single one. Long story short, we scrambled out of there immediately after discovering this. Something large enough to snap branches, smart enough to untie knots, yet fast enough to disappear from sight, somehow without making more noise, had been fucking with us. Whatever it was, it had carefully untied all the knots to the rainfly and was probably about to terrify us next. What the fuck was it?
Sounds like it could be a fairy. Never encountered one, but I've met people who have heard enough secondhand.
There are very old and very wicked things that live in them? I still don't get what crawlers are after reading your thread. Also, what else lives there? So you killed monsters too? How come normal humans don't know crawlers if they exist? Surely some normie would have stumbled upon it by now. All records of anyone killed are physical and incinerated as soon as it's done. Means nobody can hack anything and nothing can get missed. I show mercy by not prolonging suffering. But sometimes people will get in the way or try and cross you, and you make them watch as you put their family into 55-gallon drums of lye. But that's only for people who should have known better, who should have known not to try and get in the way of the machine. I don't particularly feel about it any which way. I have something of a deterministic philosophy of life. Anyone who's in my sights did something to put them there, and to get into my sights is to be fired upon. Who am I to deny them their fate? They put themselves on the road. I'm simply the destination. But as far as I understood, aren't you working for the bad people mainly? So aren't you shooting/killing good people too? Like people who make good business or spread unwanted truths, etc.? Or do you seriously think you only kill bad people who deserve it? As a reference, I remember a dieter, Brad McBolin III or something like that. He was a MK Ultra Alpha killer or something. He handled people, and if they were doing bad, he would execute them. I can send you a BitChute link of him talking. He changed his ways and quit. He said what changed him was that he once was ordered to kill another killer just like himself, but older. And he said he saw this guy, and just before he was about to kill him, he saw him cry tears and shit. And I don't know exactly anymore, but he somehow got shown the memories of this dude killing thousands of people and being totally deranged, and he was supposed to kill him because that dude stopped working accordingly.
Never heard of the guy, but sounds like BSMK Ultra and mind control style assets don't change and they'd never go public. Those are a whole different bag of worms, way worse than me. As for me, the bad guys pay my bills, yes. I kill the good and the bad alike. All depends on the orders that come down from above. Do they deserve it? I don't know. It's not for me to decide. They decided it. It's a big egotistical, but I like to consider myself an agent of death. The people I've killed made their own choices and those lead to me. To their death. Sort of like the guy from that movie No Country for Old Men. I also don't personally consider anyone to be good. Not really. I'd consider them to be passive. Everyone knows the evil that exists, but yet it prevails. Is this because good men do nothing? I would argue that a good man does not do nothing. A good man is a man of action. The people do nothing and so evil prevails. If they let evil do so, then how can they be good? I have more respect for the wicked. At least they take action. They are not passive. People do stumble across crawlers every now and then. But of course, any video or photograph evidence will be dismissed. Any undeniable physical evidence, you'd need to go through certain channels to get it verified as real and get word out to the world. There's always somebody watching, and when need be they'll contact me or someone like me to handle it. It's where the stories about men in black suits with strange faces and black sunglasses come from. We wear hyper-realistic masks when conducting such business, but it's not perfect like in those Tom Cruise movies. At a close range you can tell it's a mask because of the eye holes, hence the sunglasses. With that, all someone might think is there's something off, but not anything worth voicing concern.
Fairies aren't evil though, and they aren't big either, I think.
Not particularly evil, no, but they are often mischievous. It's the sight of a strange glow in the forest that you mentioned which makes me think fairies. But I'm not much of an expert on the little critters.
Fox, my line of questioning will continue. Glad to see you are still here. Moloch and I have been bound through a sacrificial ritual. Most families have a familial deity associated with them. A common one people have heard of is the Astor family and Ashtoreth. These are, as you know, considered to be branch families. I have been subjected to certain programming, as is common in these type of families, and I am hoping you are aware of which family line I descend from by giving you the familial deity. Now the line of questioning is as follows. 1. What is the counter-organization to what you call the Syndicate? 2. Why do you assume Moloch is evil? It may seem like a simple question, but we are dealing with entities that are directly influenced by the wielders they are attuned with. Do A. I asked you about who those were with yellow eyes. This was not meant to be a troll question, but it follows a common theme played out in movies or games, or depictions of those who are more in line with left-hand path practices. 3. What is the purpose of pineal gland extraction done by the Syndicate? From personal knowledge, this is done when the subject is experiencing extreme fear. The exact procedure is done with a needle inserted through the eye. A very fine, precise needle in which the subject feels no pain/sensation. 4. Targeted individuals. Can you classify or make a distinction for me about the categories they fall under? Thank you, Fox.
1. A counter-organization. In the same capacity and strength as the Syndicate, I don't believe there is one, but I have heard whispers about a small group led by whom I've been heard called a prophet. Don't know much about them, but there is still some that fight for the light. 2. It's the nature of the beast. Moloch is arguably the prime entity worshipped by the Syndicate. It's the most worrisome agent of the darkness if you ask me. I'd call him much worse than the Lucifer entity. 2a. I don't know, but I can spitball about why it's used commonly in media. It's been said the eyes are the window to the soul, and yellow is often viewed as a negative color, subconsciously associated with corruption. Perhaps its use is to reflect the corrupted state of the soul. 3. I assume this question is about adrenochrome. It's a drug used for ritual and leisure purposes. But it originates from the idea that it'll help keep you younger. Those in power want to eke out as many extra years as they can on this earth. 4. As in gang stalking? I've read a bit about that. It's a lot of bullshit mostly. Some people are targeted, but it's explicitly because they hold a threat. Flak heaviest above target type stuff. If the mission isn't to kill them, they'll be gang stalked and exposed to V2K, which will slowly test their sanity until anything they say is instantly discredited.
It's just an alias he gave himself after he quit. It isn't his real name. Watch for yourself. This is videos and info you don't get posted elsewhere. He's real and exists. I found him through something else. They decided it. They didn't decide it when you killed them because you were told to by evil men. You act like you have no say in here. You have no integrity. You have a choice. I have more respect for the wicked. At least they take action. They are not passive. It's clear on what path you are on.
The path they chose lead them to me. It was an inevitability. As is death. Yes, I choose to give it to them. But that is the nature of the beast. We all have to be what we are in this world. And that is what I am for the unfortunate, just and unjust alike. Death. I am not a good man. I am a bad man. Even though my sins may not carry as much weight as those of others, I do consider myself worse than them.
Fox, thank you again for your patience in answering my questions. I want to ask you for your help, in the form of advice or merely a thought experiment. Forgive me for the long-windedness of this post. 1. Where would someone like me fit into the organizational structure? I am bound to Moloch/think anime, Beelzebub. Am descended from the R family, hence have inherited their familial deity. Yet I do not have direct communication with them. They are aware of my presence. There are certain talents I possess, mainly ones you have attributed to yourself. Sometimes seeing the possibilities of the expanse of time, mainly in association with myself.
Dunno. It's not like the military, where there's a ranking structure that gets you promoted or things like that. There's those at the top and they keep them and their immediate descendants at the top. The lower echelons are filled with people who can and do come and go. I don't really know anything about you, so I couldn't even begin to think that. You say you're blood related, but likely very distant from those who have their hands on the levers of power. Maybe one day you'll be contacted and find out.
Even I won't say who I work for. Best you'll get out of me is that one upon a time I was in the Marines. He doesn't care anymore since he's out. Watch it or not, last chance at a glimpse above you.
That's the thing. In this business, you're never out. Once you're in, that's all there is to it.
You'd have to go full fascist because you can't afford to let anything slip through the cracks. How does the hero even go through with something like this while ensuring their move into heaven upon death?
A question as old as time. How does one fight monsters without becoming one? I think the context makes all the difference on whether the killing will damn you. It's not thou shalt not kill, it's thou shalt not murder. There's a difference between the two. Murder is unjustified. To kill the wolves that prey on the sheep. Maybe there's no more justified killing. Maybe that context for one's actions is enough to give them heaven. Or maybe it's not. Maybe becoming a monster and damning yourself to hell is the only way to stand against them. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the most heroic thing one can do is to damn their own soul so that others might be saved from the jaws of the monsters.
Any undeniable physical evidence, you'd need to go through certain channels to get it verified as real and get word out to the world. There's always somebody watching, and when need be, they'll contact me or someone like me to handle it. Do you know why someone would clean up evidence of cryptids? It seems dumb to deny the existence of cryptids. Separate topic. History. I've been to some historical and archaeological sites, and it's pretty clear someone is running cleanup on the sites, like literally bulldozing at least one site. Spook people there as curators. Why does the Syndicate or someone associated with them care about history?
Both questions have a similar answer. Imagine if people found out that everything they have been taught is a lie. Or that monsters are real. There would be panic, pandemonium. You think BLM riots are bad? Mossbergs and ARs would fly off shelves within a day if people knew that everything they'd been taught not to fear as a child was real. It's like that Men in Black quote, "A person is smart. People are dumb, panicky animals." The people of the world wouldn't be able to handle the truth because the foundations of society are built on the lies. So the lie is maintained. The post I was replying to was deleted. For context, it was about why people would try to cover up cryptids.
Repeating myself, but the LARP is indeed obvious. What international secret society hitman would risk his life to disclose info on /x/ of all places? But again, OP does actually know his shit and is worth listening to. Last post about this because I'm sounding like a shill, just want to be clear.
I wouldn't consider anything I've said a risk to my life. My identity is secret. All I've explained is some realities that people might not know but should. Plus, this is 4chan. Most of anything I say will be lumped in as bullshit like QAnon or whatever the hell that the nobody BS is. But I appreciate seeing someone that recognizes I'm not full of shit. It's annoying with the people who try and gotcha me.
This is in direct opposition to what you are saying about being a good person.
You mistake me telling others to be good as me saying I'm good. I am not. I know the rules to the game and encourage everyone to abide by them, but I myself am a cheater.
I noticed the guy from the CIA and FBI podcast referred to agencies as fundamental forces of the universe like gravity.
Yeah, I think he's being metaphorical. He certainly doesn't mean what I mean when I say that's what God and evil are.
Be more specific and share some details, man. What's exactly is the point of inflection where there is really not turn back? What is the big catastrophe or event that starts said darkness? What are some of the biggest important disasters that await us?
I don't believe there is a point. That there's a day and time where the storm will arrive and the streets will flood. It'll be like boiling a frog. It won't all be at once. It'll be gradual. First the storm clouds would gather. Then it will be a few drops. Eventually the storm will be a downpour and the streets will flood. The people on the streets will drown, and as they are, they'll look to the men in their high towers. The men to whom they gave the reins of fate, the men they trusted to keep them safe. They'll cry out for those men to help them, and the men will laugh. Then they'll turn their eyes to the God they've forsaken and cursed, and they'll beg for salvation. But they will get no answer in return. Because even if they didn't realize it, they all knew the storm was coming. They just didn't listen. Like the rest of humanity when Noah built the ark. But there is no ark. Humanity has to save themselves or be forever cast into a world of permanent darkness. People joke about 1984. But 1984 will be a joke compared to the future that's coming down the line. The dark clouds are already here. Do you feel the raindrops yet?
So you understand nothing?
Even the devil understands the rules to the game. Doesn't mean he has to play by them.
Do you have any thoughts on whether Saturn or the Black Cube is distinct from what you call Moloch? Do you consider Ahriman distinct from Lucifer, Saturn, Moloch, or any of the things you are calling the more powerful/influential negative entities? What are the thoughts about the warp among people in your line of work? E.g., the space where the event horizon went, that also is featured heavily in Warhammer 40K as a vital part of travel, commerce, psychic energy, belief, and fundamental connections. Thank you for your thoughts and time and openness.
I don't know if they are distinct, but there is a relation obviously. It's hard to tell a lot of times. Entities' names have changed across cultures and are often given pseudonyms by practitioners, so as not to inadvertently draw the attention of such entities by speaking their real name. I've never looked too well into Zoroastrianism if I'm being honest. But taking a cursory glance at Ahriman, I suspect it's not necessarily an actual entity but a personification given to the force I've described as evil, the antithesis to the force Christianity has anthropomorphized as God, though I refer to it as God simply because it's a more easily digestible term. Lucifer and Moloch are distinct entities. I've never met him, but I've always suspected that Lucifer may reside at the highest echelons of the Syndicate, given he is an entity that walks this earth. What form he may be I do not know. I'm familiar with Event Horizon and vaguely familiar with what you're talking about in 40K. I don't know if it's exactly as depicted in that media, but I suspect its real-world counterpart would be one of the dimensions the soul can move to after death.
Fox, the force for good semi-organization that is the diametric opposite of the Syndicate. Key words, back channels, methodologies, teachings, opportunities to apprentice, serve, etc. We need all hands on deck. 2. Very old, very wicked shoulds. Dolores Cannon book of supposedly channeled info from Inter or Extra. Dimensional entities mentions way too casually that there is a population of underground entities that will show themselves at some point in order to help, but that they are cool, just don't pick fights or you will get your ass handed to you. Sketchy psyop. Which leads to the last question. The supposedly helpful non-human entities. Who or what is known to be verified team help humans/Earth not succumb to the dark force? Sorry if long/disorganized. I wanted to get this on here before you disappear.
I don't know much about them. Just some whispers I've heard over the years. To say they oppose the Syndicate would be true, but I don't mean to give the idea that it's some vast rival organization. I think it's likely just a few people. I mentioned before that the guy in charge was some kind of prophet. It's possible that's why they have the edge. A representative for God letting them beat the odds. But that's just speculation on some things I've heard. Psyop. The things underground aren't your friend. They will kill you and they will do so viciously. The so-called good entities are representatives of God. One might call them angels and some have, though that usually refers to a specific breed of these entities. It's not necessarily that they help humanity, but they play their role in the grand story. I call the time period we are in the Final Testament. Just a funny little title for it. My reasoning is that there's the Old Testament and the New Testament, but while I have issues relating to accuracy within the text, it's not a complete story. It can't be. There can't possibly just 2,000 years of nothing, of the story not continuing. And that's because the story has continued. It's just that nobody has written it down, though you can certainly piece together bits and pieces of it if you know what you're doing. The helping entities are like the angels from the Bible. They serve their purposes in the grand story, appearing before those who need them.